Now, I'm going to walk you through how I went about looking at Samantha and her reading abilities, and I came up with quite a different conclusion from what I anticipated with Samantha. Now, Samantha is in grade 4, but she could just as easily be in year 7, year 8, when it comes to looking at what I saw with her abilities. So even though she's young, you could think of this in terms of if she was in year 7, if she was in year 8, you'd be seeing very similar things. Okay, so Samantha, lovely young lady, mum, very supportive, very switched on, very much they're a close knit unit, and it's always a joy to work with a family like that. Now, I didn't stick to the script or the pre-planned questions for Samantha, and that's fine. And after a while, you won't be sticking to pre-planned questions either because you'll just know what to look for. But what I want to do is I want to walk you through what I was looking for and what I was seeing and what that indicates. Then you can adapt and you can modify things to your own style of teaching and your own style of relating to students when you do similar things with the children you work with. Now, Mum had initially asked for help with dyslexia, and Mum said it's affecting her reading and her writing. So I asked, okay, are we talking phonological dyslexia or are we talking visual stress, also known as Erlen syndrome? And Mum said, look, I don't know, but I'll see if I can track down a report from a year ago. So that tells me that whoever the expert is who did work with Samantha in the past did not clearly communicate with Mum about what was broken or what needed fixing and what those steps were to fix that, which is pretty standard. And it's part of why I'm saying to you as teachers, deal with this stuff in your classroom if you can. It did strike me straight away when I first met Samantha that she does appear bright and enthusiastic and like a good-hearted kid, and she's got a lot of optimism. And Mum clearly values education, and Mum's been doing a lot of work with her at home. Now, that also tells me that for the past few years, Mum would have been making sure that her daughter had lots and lots of exposure to books. So that rules out that her core issue is going to be a lack of reading and writing exposure when she was young. That's clearly not going to be the case here. Now, Samantha goes to a pretty good school where the kids are fairly compliant. Her teacher is fairly proactive and definitely caring, and that tells me that poor teaching is not going to be the explanation for why Samantha is so far behind in her reading and writing skills. Now, the first thing I noticed with Samantha is she quickly pulled out a piece of yellow plastic. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's called an overlay. It's just a piece of coloured plastic, and basically for someone with visual stress, a colour other than white is going to help them. Different colours help different children, and for Samantha, the colour yellow seems to help her. So she pulled it out straight away, and I just wanted to explore that. I wanted to check what's happening with her with yellow and with white paper. And so having a look at how she views text on white paper and on yellow, on what's now yellow paper because it's white paper with yellow over it, the words definitely stay more still for her on a yellow page or on a pale blue page. So the catch here was, though, that the words were not doing huge things on white paper. Normally, if someone's got a coloured overlay, a piece of coloured plastic, then that's because the words are very distinctly moving, or they're shaking, or they're fading, or something really significant. Whereas for Samantha, the words only slightly shake. They only slightly sort of blur and shake a bit. So that tells me that, yes, on white paper, there's an issue for her there. She's definitely much better off on yellow paper or reading through this yellow overlay. Absolutely. But that's not the whole story, because if that was the whole story, she'd already be reading and writing just fine by now, because it's really not, it's not that huge a deal to her. It's there and it's an issue, but it's not the full story. There's something more to this story. So the next step is for me to check for phonological dyslexia. So instead of running thousands of dollars of expensive tests, it's actually pretty straightforward to do a quick rough check for phonological dyslexia. So I asked her to imagine the word black in her head, B-L-A-C-K, black. And I said, well, what's black if I take the L out of it? And then I did the same activity with stuck, S-T-U-C-K, stuck. What if I took the S-T off the front and put a T-R in front? So that, obviously you and I know stuck would become truck. And then same sort of thing, with a couple of other words. What I noticed very quickly was it takes her a huge amount of processing time to do these activities. Huge. I mean, she's in year 4. She's in grade 4. She should be very quick with these. But she was able to do it, but my goodness, it was taking a long time. And that's a very clear indicator that she's likely to have phonological dyslexia. So then my next step was I made up a couple of nonsense words and wrote them down. I wrote down staginta, which is a made up word, I hope. Maybe there is a word, I don't know. But Staginta, what's this word? And I made up another one called, well, I call it triputin, Tryputin, just made up words. And I asked her to sound out these words for me and read them to me. Now, she was really slow to read them. She could do it, but really slow. And I mean, it's good because it tells me that she's having to sound the words out. So this activity is doing what it's designed to do, but she shouldn't be that slow to do it. And when I look at her reading, when she's just reading a paragraph, her readings, it sounds fine. And yet with these sort of words, she's just so slow. So again, very clear indication of phonological dyslexia. Now, her spelling isn't terrible, but it's nowhere near as good as you'd expect for someone who reads like she does. When she reads, she actually reads fairly well. When she reads like a Year 4 student really should. But then when you ask her what happened in that part of the book, she has no idea. She'll give you a blank look. I don't know. Now, the fact that she can read really well would say, hold on, I don't think it is phonological dyslexia. But then when she can't comprehend anything she's reading, that's telling me that she's having to put all her energy and all her focus into decoding, into sounding out what the words are, into being able to know what the words are to tell you what they are as she's reading. So, then you think, okay, well, maybe she does have phonological dyslexia. So basically, I noticed that if she reads a paragraph once, doesn't comprehend it. If she reads it a second time, she sort of comprehends it. That's not really common for a girl in Year 4. She should be much better at comprehending than that. I did notice that if she slowed down and read unbelievably slowly, and it's funny, kids don't like doing this, but it can be effective. So reading literally maybe a third the pace that she would normally read, then she could comprehend quite well. So all of a sudden I've got all this, this contradicting sort of thing happening where on one hand, she can't pull apart words and put them back together in her head. She can, but she's very, very slow. She can't read made up words, Well, again, she can, but she's very, very slow. And yet she sounds like her reading's fine when she reads. At first impression, you'd say, yeah, she's fine. She can read quite well. But then when you see, she just can't comprehend what she's reading at all unless she reads unbelievably slow. There's so much happening there. So the thing with diagnosing phonological dyslexia is that it's never super straightforward, or it's rarely super straightforward. And even when it's there, you go, well, where is she on the scale? Is she mild? Is she medium? Where's she at? Well, the fact that she can read, or the fact that she sounds like she can read, is clearly saying she's not in a situation where she's got severe phonological dyslexia. That's not the case. And then I've got to also take into account that because when she reads through yellow, that deals with the visual stress issue that she's got. So, I mean, that's at play as well, By the way, when she was reading these things to me, she was reading through yellow. So I know the words are staying still for her. I'm going to go with she's got somewhere between mild and medium phonological dyslexia, probably more towards the mild end. That's a tough call when you look at some of what she did, but I'm going to go with that. But she does definitely have it, and it's compounded by the visual stress that she has, also known as Irlen syndrome or scotopic sensitivity. So this is one of those rare cases where she's actually got both. Most of the time when people say to me, oh, my child has got visual stress and phonological dyslexia, most of the time it's not true. It's not the case. You look at the child and usually in that situation, it's going to be the visual stress is creating symptoms that look like phonological dyslexia. But for Samantha, I think it's straightforward. Yes, the visual stress is there. Yes, she does need to have her work on yellow paper whenever possible and stuff like that. But as well, that phonological dyslexia, you can't get away from it. It's clearly there. So the real issue is not having a diagnosis, because a diagnosis won't change her life. What will change her life is having specific actions and new habits to put into place and practical things to do in the future. So here's what mum needs to do for her. And mum, I know that mum will implement this. The first thing is she needs to go and buy a whole heap of yellow paper, because even though she's been reading through yellow, she hasn't been writing on yellow. She's been writing on white. Well, what that means is when she goes back to reread what she's written, the words are slightly moving on the page. You don't want that. You want her to be able to write on yellow paper in that situation. Also at school, you want Samantha to be sitting near a window, because that way the natural light is going to counteract the super white fluorescent light that is in her classroom. And that white light just makes everything more white than it already is. That's not in her favour. So yeah, sit near a window. She needs to do a lot of activities that are about pulling words apart and putting them back together again. Things like rhyming words and compound words like sailboat or handshake or dragonfly. She's going to be getting some tutoring, which is really great, because I know that at that tutoring they can focus on helping her with a bit more practice of reading, with pulling words apart and stuff like that. But also, when I looked at her written skills, she's writing very short sentences, 4, 5, 6 word sentences. That's not what you want for a year 4 student. So they're going to focus on getting her writing longer, more complex sentences, which is ideal. Also, Samantha doesn't read at home with mum, and the reason for that's obvious. It's because it's a painful experience for her. She doesn't enjoy the feeling of not having a clue what she's just read. So even though that's not what she wants, mum's going to make sure that she's listening to Samantha read. It's important that she only listens to Samantha read for about 5 minutes a day. Any more than that, she's just going to exhaust Samantha. And once she's exhausted, you're not really getting any value out of it anyway. And what mum's going to do is she's going to make sure that she's reading, that Samantha is reading slowly, and that Samantha is rereading paragraphs at least once. And she'll ask Samantha, so what was that paragraph about? And mum knows how to do that now, which is ideal. Now, there's probably 5 or 6 other things that I've got mum all keyed up, ready and excited to do at home that are going to help Samantha. But let's not go into that now. The purpose of me showing you this in this section of the course is because I really want you to see that it's okay to go off the script. You don't have to stick to a script. You can just follow where the clues lead you. That's fine. And that it is actually possible that a person would have both visual stress and phonological dyslexia. It's really rare, like more rare than you'd think. It happens, but I don't see that much at all. Usually in that circumstance, it's just visual stress. People assume phonological dyslexia, but it's not. And the other thing I want you to get out of this is that often things will come up that are unexpected. So it was unexpected for me that Samantha would sound like such a good reader when she read. Like, to me, that just didn't seem to fit. But when I look at all the different things I looked at, it is pretty clear that yes, the phonological dyslexia is there, as well as the Erlen syndrome, visual stress, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, look, I hope you get a heap out of that. I hope it encourages you to use some trial and error. Don't just stick to a script or a formula. Actually, get creative and think things through and weigh things up, because there are so many different criteria you could look at to decide, does someone have phonological dyslexia or not? And sometimes you've also got to use a bit of your own judgment.